The sun was beginning to dip beneath the horizon, casting the sky in shades of copper. Ibrahim Trioray's convoy was making its way back from the northern border after a long day spent with commanders and village elders. The work had been grueling, but rewarding. He had spent hours checking the food supplies and ensuring the security of the vulnerable villages along the border. There had been progress, though small. Grain trucks had finally made their way through 2 blocked roads, and a new well had begun providing fresh water to displaced families. Ibrahim sat in the back seat of the car, reviewing his notes. There was still so much to be done. "Double the grain for Kosuka and Tau," he instructed his aide, "and make sure we send 2 nurses with the next convoy. Hunger and fever together can destroy a village." His aide nodded quickly, acknowledging the instructions as the convoy entered Ouagadougou, the bustling city. The atmosphere around him changed. The usual rhythm of the city surrounded him, vendors shouting from every corner, the hum of radios and the zipping of motorbikes weaving through traffic. The sounds were comforting, but something caught Ibrahim's attention. Beneath a neem tree, a young woman stood barefoot, her swollen belly held with one hand, a small bowl of coins in the other. She was ignored by everyone walking past her, like she was invisible, a fixture in the cityscape that people had learned to ignore. Ibrahim's heart sank. "Stop the car," he said, his voice sharp. The driver hesitated, unsure. "I said stop," Ibrahim repeated, his tone leaving no room for doubt. The car came to a halt, and the convoy slowed to a stop as well. Ibrahim's guards quickly stepped out, forming a protective circle around the vehicle. The crowd gathered, whispering among themselves, wondering what Ibrahim was doing. Ignoring the murmurs and the surprised looks, Ibrahim stepped out of the car and walked toward the woman under the neem tree. The crowd parted as he made his way toward her. Instead of standing above her, he sat down beside her on the curb, lowering himself so that their eyes were level. The crowd gasped at the sight of the leader sitting on the ground. "Is that really him?" someone whispered. "My sister," Ibrahim said gently to the woman, his voice calm but full of empathy. "Why are you here? Are you with child?" The woman's eyes filled with tears as she nodded, her voice breaking. "6 months. I have nothing to eat. I stand here until my legs give out. People pass me by as if I'm invisible." Ibrahim felt the weight of her words. "What is your name?" he asked softly. "Mariam," she replied, barely able to hold back her tears. "I didn't come to shame anyone. I just want this child to live." Ibrahim's gaze shifted to the bowl she held, then back to her face. The silence between them was heavy, filled with a deep understanding. "Come with me," Ibrahim said, his voice filled with determination. "We'll eat first." Mariam hesitated. "No," she whispered. "People will laugh. They'll say I used pity to climb into your car. They'll say I took advantage of your kindness. You bring no shame," Ibrahim replied firmly. "You bring truth. And I'm not taking you to a palace, I'm taking you to a table." Mariam looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of deception. When she found none, she nodded reluctantly. Ibrahim signaled for his guards to help her into the car. As she climbed in, Ibrahim looked back at the empty neem tree. The fatigue that had weighed on him all day suddenly shifted into something much more purposeful. In the car, Ibrahim's aide spoke softly. "Sir, we could send someone to help her later. This isn't safe." Ibrahim didn't flinch. "If it isn't safe for a pregnant woman to stand on the street, then it isn't safe for me to drive past her with my windows closed." The car moved forward, in silence. As the convoy made its way through the city, the sounds of Ouagadougou faded into the background. Ibrahim's mind was focused, not on the city's noises, but on the promise he'd made, a promise of dignity. The convoy didn't head for the Grand Hall where Ibrahim usually held meetings with officials. No, today was different. Today, he had a different mission in mind. They turned down a quieter road, away from the noise and crowds. Ibrahim led Mariam to a simple dining room with a wooden table beneath a wide window that allowed the fresh evening air to flow in. The table was simple, but the view was expansive. The steward set down bowls of rice, vegetables, sauce, and bread before stepping back respectfully. Ibrahim waved him away. "Eat," he said, his voice gentle, yet firm. Mariam hesitated, looking at the food as if unsure whether she belonged there. "It feels wrong," she murmured. "Like I'm inside someone else's dream." Ibrahim smiled softly, understanding her discomfort. "This is your seat," he said kindly. "Hunger does not respect titles." Slowly, Mariam picked up a piece of bread and took a bite. As she chewed, her face softened, and some of the tension seemed to ease from her shoulders. The color slowly returned to her cheeks. Ibrahim watched her quietly for a moment before breaking the silence. "What is your story?" Mariam traced the grain of the table with her finger, as if gathering the strength to speak. "When I found out I was pregnant, my husband, Yakuba, laughed so loud that the neighbors thought we'd won the lottery. He said, 'If it's a boy, I'll teach him to ride a bicycle the day he can stand.' I teased him back, saying, 'And if it's a girl, what will you do?' He said, 'I'll buy her 2 bicycles.' Her smile cracked as she continued, her voice trembling. "One morning he left early. A truck had broken down, so he took another road. There was an accident. At the hospital, the nurse told me we needed money for a scan. We ran out to borrow some, but when we returned, she told me it was too late." Mariam's hands shook as she held her cup. "Yakuba worked hard, but it was never enough. After he died, the landlord demanded rent. My friends had no space for me. I stood there, on that street corner, because I had nothing left. I hate begging, but I want this child to live." Ibrahim listened, his expression softening as he absorbed her pain. For a moment, the room was silent, filled with the weight of Mariam's words. Ibrahim leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table. "Mariam," he said quietly, "I'm sorry. Sorry for the road. Sorry for the hospital. Sorry for the silence that followed. None of this is your fault." Mariam covered her face with her hands, tears flowing freely. Ibrahim's voice was firm and resolute. "You will not beg again. That is my promise, not for the cameras, but for you." Mariam's eyes lifted, filled with doubt. "People promise when the cameras are on, but they leave." "The only camera today," Ibrahim said, tapping his chest, "is my memory, and it follows me everywhere." The silence between them deepened as the weight of Ibrahim's promise settled into the room. The evening air felt cooler, the soft clink of the silverware on the table the only sound. Ibrahim turned to the steward and asked for tea. The steam from the cups filled the room, adding a touch of warmth to the quiet. Mariam's eyes were still, filled with doubt, but a small flicker of hope began to shine through. Ibrahim's voice cut through the silence once again. "Tell me one more thing, Mariam. If tomorrow you could work with dignity, what would you choose?" Mariam blinked in surprise. "Work? You mean a job?" Ibrahim nodded. "Yes, your dream." Her eyes softened, the faintest spark of hope flickering in them. "Since I was a girl, I loved flowers. I learned their names from a neighbor: hibiscus, bougainvillea, jasmine. I dreamed of having my own flower shop." Her voice faltered. "But dreams are too expensive for the poor." "Dreams should not be a luxury," Ibrahim said softly. "They should be a right." Mariam's gaze met his, and for the first time, she allowed herself to hope. "Tomorrow," Ibrahim said, "we will walk a street with empty shutters." The next day, Ibrahim's actions were swift, purposeful, and intentional. The vision he had for Mariam didn't end with a simple meal or a kind word. Ibrahim was a man who understood that true change didn't come from empty promises, but from concrete steps toward dignity. He moved quietly, organizing a plan that would set Mariam on a path not of charity, but of empowerment. His first order of business was to find a small shop near the market. He knew the city well and understood the power of location. A shop here, where people passed daily, would not just serve as a business, but as a symbol of hope, strength, and possibility. He reached out to Auntie Rukia, the florist by the mosque, a woman known for her love of flowers and her community ties. Ibrahim spoke with her and explained his vision. Mariam would work under her guidance, learning the art of floristry, and, together, they would open a flower shop for Mariam. The old florist agreed without hesitation, seeing the sincerity in Ibrahim's eyes. By the end of the week, the transformation had begun. A narrow shop was given a fresh coat of white paint, and the shelves and counters were being set up by a local carpenter. Ibrahim didn't ask for anything extravagant. It had to be simple, but meaningful. The sign for the shop was carefully painted with the words, Mariam's Garden, Flowers, Hope. Ibrahim stood by the shop's doorway one afternoon, watching, the final touches being made. The place, once empty and worn, now glowed with life. It was no longer just a building. It was a place where dreams could take root. As the workers packed up their tools and left for the day, Ibrahim entered the shop, making his way to the counter where Mariam stood. She looked around, her eyes wide, disbelief clouding her face. This is for me?" she asked, her voice trembling with uncertainty. "Yes, Mariam," Ibrahim replied, his voice soft yet filled with conviction. "This is for you." He stepped forward and bought the first bouquet from her, a mixture of roses, chrysanthemums, and mint. He placed money into the tin box with a small smile, speaking the words that meant so much more than any transaction. "Business begins with hope," he said. Mariam looked down at the flowers, still unable to fully grasp what was happening. This wasn't just about selling flowers. It was about rebuilding her life, piece by piece. And it wasn't just Ibrahim who believed in her. The people around her would soon believe as well. Ibrahim left quietly, without the fanfare of his usual entourage, as if the moment needed no more than the quiet satisfaction of knowing he had helped plant the seeds of change. But his actions were far from over. The next few days were challenging. While the flower shop opened its doors to the community, trouble soon found its way in. One afternoon, a man dressed in a leather jacket leaned against the counter, eyeing Mariam as if she were nothing more than a business opportunity. "Nice shop you've got here," he said, his voice low and threatening. "This lane has rules. Pay the safety fee and nothing bad happens." Mariam froze, her hands trembling as she clutched the counter. "I don't have a safety fee," she replied, her voice shaky but defiant. "I have a business. I have a baby." The man's eyes narrowed. "Everyone pays," he sneered, his gaze hard and cold. "Whether they like it or not." Before Mariam could speak, further Auntie Rukia stepped forward, her old but sharp eyes locking onto the man. "She pays her taxes like anyone else. She will not pay you." The man smirked but didn't argue. He left the shop with a final glance that sent chills down Mariam's spine. That afternoon, the flower fridge in the back of the shop suddenly stopped working. The electricity was cut off, and soon rumors began to spread like wildfire. Opposition bloggers mocked Ibrahim's initiative, claiming it was nothing but a pity performance. Some even went so far as to accuse Ibrahim of using Mariam's situation as a publicity stunt. It didn't take long before a council clerk claimed that Mariam's shop lacked the proper paperwork and a stamp, which, coincidentally, was now 5 times the usual cost. Mariam stood in the back room, wiping away tears as she heard the laughter and mocking voices from outside. She felt the weight of the situation bearing down on her. Maybe it was too much, too soon. "Maybe I should close," she whispered, her voice filled with defeat. But Auntie Rukia wouldn't let her give up. She placed a hand on Mariam's shoulder and said, "You've worked harder in a week than some men do in a year. Trouble found you on the street, and you didn't give up. Don't give up now." As if on cue, Dr. Salif arrived for his weekly visit. He found Mariam in the back room, her face red and blotchy from crying. He calmly checked her vitals, listened to the baby's heartbeat, and then sat down next to her. "You're under a lot of stress," he said. "Drink more water, rest when you can, and when trouble knocks, call this number." He handed her a card, which she took with a weary but grateful expression. "Thank you," she said softly. That night, Ibrahim arrived at the shop, but this time he wasn't in his usual attire. He wore plain clothes, looking every bit the man who had entered her life to help her, and not just for a fleeting moment. He bought a small plant from her, asking, "How was your day?" Mariam told him everything, the man's extortion, the rumors, the missing stamp. As she spoke, she braced herself for Ibrahim's anger, expecting him to lash out. Instead, his eyes burned with a quiet, steady determination. "Tomorrow, two things will happen," Ibrahim said firmly. "First, we file a police complaint about the extortion. We'll do it quietly, but we'll do it. Second, we launch a pilot program. Small, honest shops like yours. If any shop faces illegal fees, we'll send a lawyer for free. If permits get stuck, we'll unstick them. If rumors spread, we'll answer with facts. This is not charity, Mariam. This is government, as it should be." Mariam exhaled, the weight of the world lifting slightly from her shoulders. "What if they laugh at us?" she asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. "If they laugh," Ibrahim said, with a tired but kind smile, "let them laugh. We'll be busy selling flowers." The following morning, someone wrote "Palace Girl" on the shop's shutter. It was meant to insult Mariam, implying that she only got the shop due to her connection to Ibrahim. But by noon, 3 women from the neighborhood stood in front of the shop with their arms crossed, ready to defend her. By evening, a student posted a video online. "I bought a plant today. The owner used to beg in the sun. Now she pays taxes and even hired her cousin. This is the kind of politics I want." The video went viral, and soon, the man in the leather jacket never returned. The shop found its rhythm. On Mondays, Mariam bought flowers at dawn. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, children paused to watch her arrange bouquets. Fridays, she closed early for prayer. Weekends brought weddings and funerals, the two constants in a city full of joy and sorrow. And every week, Dr. Salif checked on her and the baby, offering advice and encouragement. But the fight was far from over. Ibrahim knew that real change would take time, and though some mocked, others began to believe. Slowly but surely, Mariam's story became a beacon of hope, not just for her, but for everyone who had been overlooked by society. And through it all, Ibrahim never stopped working. His promise to Mariam, no, to the people, was simple. No one would face this alone.